what you want, and money will come.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the show. I'm Mike Miller, and hope you're having a great day. We really appreciate you watching. My guest today is Naz, and I appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me.
And so you've got an album that you put out a few years ago.
Yes, actually it was just released a few months ago. The name of it is Timpani La Moda.
Okay, yeah.
And it's by my band Arcane Timpani.
Why did it say 2008 on here? Something was 2008.
I'm not even sure. That might be an error or
yeah.
something.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that a lot of our tracks, I was holding on to a lot of tracks from that era,
that
so
time
it might have
period,
just been like a typo or something on someone's behalf or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were involved with music in high school, and
Yeah.
then you started feeling the urge to write lyrics and...
Yeah, I was in a band called April Overcast when I was in high school. The band, one of the band's members, I was in, was Chris Robinson from the Caterpillars. And we used to have an instrumental rock band that we kind of based off of early Terra Milos records and early records by bands like that. But even then, I was incorporating synthesizers and like very electronic sounds into a much more progressive rock area. And I think that I kind of advanced on that, and for better or for worse, I think he kind of took some of my ideas into his more recent bands. But I was glad to be able to really work on something that I wanted to do, and that meant a lot to me.
Well, did you have access in high school to synthesizers?
In high school, I had a Kurzweil K2600, a Yamaha Motif ES7, and a Roland Phantom XA. Those were my three keyboards. I think I mostly used the Yamaha Motif ES7 in April Overcast. I used a Kurzweil K2600 because I was simultaneously also producing beats for a rap group named Crunk Texas Click when I was in high school. And so like this band is kind of like a way where I could integrate rock music and electronic music together. And also from my experiences from going to music festivals like Coachella and stuff like that, and seeing all these like huge visuals set up around the like festivals and like augmented reality like art my friends do and stuff like that. It was a way I could kind of embrace my own life and my own experiences.
Did you see Flaming Lips at NX35?
No, I missed that, but I remember I was interning for 35 Denton the year that Jesus and the Mary Chain played, and I had the backstage for that.
Really?
Yeah.
I heard them. Yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah. It was really fun. I think I got too intoxicated for my own good, but that was a fun year in general because I was getting VIP to almost everything that year. I think I got VIP to almost a lot of the different venue shows, and I was touring with Greg Ginn from Black Flag, and I had VIP to Coachella. So I was, for a long time there, I was like backstaging about everything. Yeah. And it was, I missed the Flaming Lips show. I would have liked to be there, but I just had more things to do at that time.
Yeah. Who were some of your influences when you were growing up, do you think?
It's really hard to say because I had influences mostly when I was younger, but now I think I'm much more inspired by like, nature and the nature of life and the things that we experience in our world and like the way the world works around me. But when I was younger, let's see, who are my
Did you like Stevie Wonder?
No, I actually, when I was younger, I used to listen to bands like Rush and King Crimson, Mahavishnu Orchestra, Pink Floyd. My dad was a huge progressive rock enthusiast. My mom listened to things like Prince and Michael Jackson and stuff like that, so I'm sure that has a natural place. It's really hard to say because I used to listen to a lot of rap music, and I used to listen to a lot of EDM, and then I had music software when I was really young, so
Snoop Dogg? You like him?
More or less, yeah, I like Snoop Dogg a lot. Like, my first show in DFW actually was Snoop Dogg and Red Hot Chili Peppers, and it was supposed to be the Mars Volta, but they had canceled that tour for that year, so I had to go see them another time. But
where was that held?
American Airlines Center, I want to say.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Oh no, it's where they hold Warped Tour. I think Smirnoff.
Oh, really?
It was an outside venue.
That was your very first concert to go to?
No, I went to the Temptations, I think, before that. I'm not too sure if that was before or after.
Did you like the Temptations?
Yeah, I love soul music. I think soul had a lot to do with, I think I'm more inspired by soul music when I approach noise, like kind of building clarity out of the calm and the raw. I really like soul music a lot. Yeah.
What really caused rap music to develop, do you think?
Rap music was developed, I think, by like people trying to create music unconventionally. I think people found ways to use turntables as an instrument, and a lot of people, a lot of artists, graffiti artists and stuff like that, they probably thought, everyone thought it was cool. I don't really know, because it seems like, as far as like a cultural thing for like African Americans, like it was probably something that different artists were pushing creatively until like it got over the edge, which it did.
At what point did it get over the edge?
Over the edge in a good way. I think, it was probably really hard for people to voice their struggles, in the past. And so using rap music in the 80s or 70s or what have you was just a way that, I know punks related to hip hop music more so than they do now. Back then, like there was people were a lot more cooler about that stuff back in the day.
When Aerosmith had that video with, who was that, MC?
That was Run DMC.
Run DMC, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was, yeah. Yeah, and you start integrating these arts, and now like rap music has reached this like communicative technological level that's really confusing for a lot of people, but at the same time, it's still what it used to be. People are trying to push, or what have you, over the edge,
It seems to me some of what I hear, the beats are getting simpler again and more like, almost like funk or soul, rather than so complicated and offbeat type things that I heard over the few years.
More or less, yeah. I guess you could say that, because you have bands like Atmosphere and bands like that who've integrated live instruments, but at the same time you have bands like Death Grips, that do a lot of sampling, but their drummer is from Hella, and they're just like really good, It's really hard to say, because now I feel like rap music is probably more influenced by electronic music. And so I think the beats are actually getting more complex, and for a lot of people, I think they don't really understand the integrity it takes to create electronic music and to like mix bass patches together, make heavy sounding kick drums or stuff like that. So it's really hard to say, because in production you never know what someone is putting into it. You just hear what you hear, and it's always different. I think that if anything, the progression of hip hop is probably at its most important stage right now, and a lot of artists are learning how to use live instruments and learning how to collaborate, and it feels good to be a part of that. But I don't really consider myself quote unquote a hip hop artist. Like I'm definitely like orchestral music is a huge part of what I do. Yeah, and
that's what I enjoyed about your album. It's very enjoyable to listen to, pretty relaxed and so on, and I thought mixed well. The keyboards and I guess the synthesizer sounds good, and you have different sound effects, like some sounds like water or whatever, and that's relaxing.
Absolutely, yeah. I kind of wanted to put a spell on the train, but yeah, water, all these things, all these natural things, like you're saying, like basically most of these songs are singer-songwriter songs. Like I wrote all the lyrics, composed all the melodies, composed all the vocal parts and stuff like that. Like.
And you brought other musicians in. You have singers and.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Like, we're using these genres as a muse to create these walls of. I never really feel like I'm limited to just one thing, or I'm just going to be like doing one thing for a period of time. But like.
What is the difference between rap and hip hop?
The difference between rap and hip hop is rap music is fun and hip hop music is funner.
Are those the only differences, really?
Yes, to me. I enjoy rap music. I wouldn't say that rap music is my favorite.
Is rap more like preaching type lyric beat? The meter is more like just talking and almost like preaching.
It's funny that you bring that up, because I almost feel like music genres themselves won't even exist soon enough. I feel like the term rap music and hip hop music has been so overlapped recently that you don't really see it's a fuse now. It's like rap and hip hop has almost became one, and it just goes to show you how music is progressing in general, and how maybe one day there won't even be a such thing as a music genre, probably because of CD stores. People have genres to label what they're getting into, but as instruments progress, like in the natures of mind, and as more analog and digital or new ideas of how to make music or how to combine different sounds continue, I highly doubt the idea of a quote-unquote music genre will be very sufficient in the future.
Well, it seems like the last 20 or 30 years, though, there's been more of bringing forth, say, African music and Brazilian music into the American culture.
Absolutely. I mean, I think for a long time...
European culture, too, British.
Yeah, for a long time, I mean, those things have been embraced in electronic music, and I think electronic music alone was able to come up. But then again, of course, dub's very important. Of course, reggae is very important. I mean, even in beats and stuff like that. I mean, we're just kind of in this renaissance of music, Whereas in the past, even bands like Frank Zappa and stuff like that, a lot of these bands were in studios and people were telling them what to do. And now we're in a renaissance where we can make our own music and we can make it sound how we want to.
What is dub exactly?
Dub music is a form of reggae that's very, I mean, it's really hard to describe. It's like the kind of reggae you hear that's way more trippy and has delayed keyboards and delayed snares and stuff like that without necessarily the conventional Bob Marley sound, or it's a lot more trippy and psychedelic. It's like the psychedelic rock of reggae.
Yeah. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Sheep Dogma. What inspired that song?
I think it was religion mostly. I think when me and Tanya were writing that song.
Tanya Bloom.
Yeah, Tanya Bloom, who also does flute on the album, does amazing.
She sounds really good. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Her singing and flute playing.
Oh yeah.
Extraordinary.
Yeah, the singing was really raw. That's something we wanted because like a lot of other artists, I mean, I come from a punk rock family, quote unquote, with SST, I wanted to bring that raw element into electronic music, being that this is mostly an electronic album, just embrace who I am and what I do. The song is about not necessarily religion itself, but kind of the cultural adaptation of religion, where the violence of religion or whatever, and it's just a song kind of expressing freedom, expressing not feeling confined by social norms or confined by culturalization or Americanization or whatever. It's just about being free and being able to be who you are, not having to worry about different things.
Yeah. And How is Forever?
How is Forever?
I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's a skeptical song. It's a song that basically when I came up with the idea, I was I would go to a lot of dubstep shows and go to a lot of EDM shows and see sometimes I would go, and I'm obviously a producer and obviously a musician and a composer and all of these different things, and I would go to a lot of shows and sometimes the DJs would be playing things that you could visually interpret because you're at certain music festivals where all these DJs were or something like that, and they would recreate this to kind of keep their population up. And sometimes I would feel so isolated and so alone because I felt me being who I am and my affiliations, I wasn't able to embrace those things. So sometimes I realized after going to shows I would come up with these very very regressive or very mean thoughts that weren't me, and I would wake up the next morning and be oh wow, why the fuck was I thinking that last night, And How is Forever was just an analytical look on how different people can interpret power and how, I mean, being that I made this in April and that song was finished in April, and so many things have happened in our world since then. It was kind of just from that point, a foresight, a skeptical view of the way our world was turning, and almost a productive accomplice to rise above these situations that seem oppressive.
What about the information bridge?
The information bridge is also the same thing with foresight and technology and information. It's just a realization of how our world is, how everything's communicated, how everything's interconnected. You know, it's kind of almost like a celebration of, you know, the optimism and people with open minds, you know, and people with open minds that do art and do graphic art and visual art, and, you know, people who do even mobile work or whatever. It's a celebration of the good and the good. Like, how is forever skeptical of the bad? The information bridge is, it's awarding to the good.
Well, that sounds good. And then your title track, and I wonder, how did you come up with this phrase exactly?
I was Googling a lot of different words and seeing what words sounded good together. I think timpani la moda is Spanish for timpani fashion. And the name arcane, or the Spanish word arcane, means mysterious. And like the title, like Mysterious Timpani, for me just gave me such a, you know, almost like barbaric sense of, you know, like what that sounds like. The picture that paints in my head was beautiful to me. So
does timpani mean something other than the timpani drum?
No, it just means a drum. Yeah. But I think the drum itself, like
a tunable drum.
Yeah, that has a very loud or very
big sound.
Big sound. Yeah. To me, like timpani fashion was kind of like a, you know, being that there's a lot of electronic stuff on, as well as orchestral and a lot of jazz. I mean, half of the song is jazz, like straight up, with the sitar, with the Casio keyboard ran through a dubstep pedal meant for bass guitars, and the flute and drum machine. The idea is the title track. Like, this is the only instrumental. Or it's not the only instrumental, but it's the only like electronic EDM instrumental song.
What does EDM mean?
Electronic dance music.
Oh, okay.
You know, which is 12 minutes long. I think it was the song that kind of embraced all the music. You know, I don't really put a lot of time into, like, you know, thinking about the title or thinking about the name. I love the song. I was like, that sounds cool. Like, that works perfect with this 12-minute composition. So we'll just throw the name on there and then let the track be the track.
How many tracks do most of these songs have, do you think?
Like, tracking as far as like the electronic stuff and the analog? I know Flight Risk has like 120 or something like that.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, like we put a ton of tracks. I mean, honestly, it's probably the same thing throughout, because, I mean, you have so much electronic production on here and you have so much live instrumentation. Like, you know, sometimes it's even difficult to tell which is which, because, like, I mean, I know in House Forever there's a trumpet part, and like even now, like when I show people, I'm like feeling guilty because I'm like, that's a live trumpet, you know. But, you know, people are like, what kind of samples do you use? I'm like, oh, that's not samples. It just sounds like they are because everything's kind of mixed so well.
Well, it's good to use real instruments.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, and that's something that I had a conversation with Marcel Rodriguez Lopez from the Mars Volta about, is like trying to compress live performance into making music, you know. Like, that's one thing that we were chatting about, something I've talked about.
And you played horns in high school, didn't you? Trombone or something?
I only played keyboards in high school, and I used to do metal vocals for a band called Ambrose. And I used to just do a lot of different things, you know, like we played at the Red Blood Club. I mean, when I was young, I was much more into metal and progressive rock than I am now.
You grew up in Dallas?
Yeah, Dallas and Frisco and Plano. Yeah, and I generally am much more inspired by progressive rock than a lot of other genres. I mean, to me, some of these songs are like me, like embracing how I felt when I first heard it in A Court of Crimson King or something like that. Like having the mobility of orchestral and digital music was made me available to reach these kind of frequencies that I've always loved.
What are some of your favorite radio stations around here?
My favorite radio stations? I mean, I feel like because I know AV, I have to say 104.5 FM. I don't know. I don't really listen to the radio a lot. I mean, I do when I get the chance, but I don't necessarily like. I feel much more closed off because I have artists I listen to, and I just listen to radio when I get the chance.
Yeah, do you just listen to internet radio rather than old-fashioned radio?
Yeah, I mean, I benefit from like the investments that are put into place to like Spotify and like Force Media and stuff that I don't really understand that much, you know, and we're like building this all, and it's like, you know.
Spotify, do they pay artists for their streams?
No, what happened was some investor from out of the country gave Spotify and Rhapsody, I don't know, I get a digital snapshot every morning, I read about this, and they paid them money to like, for bands like me who's like affiliated with multiple different music entities, like, you know, they pay these like upcoming artists, you know, or they paid, the investment was that they would help all of these artists as far as like reinterpreting or like, you know, networking or technologically closing in things.
I didn't know they helped on that end.
Yeah, not that many people do, but I mean, like, there's times where I go to Oak Street and like I can tell that my music is being indirectly promoted, you know, and it's something that anyone can read about or Google. Not that many people keep up with it because not that many people have those privileges, you know, at that point until they make those connections. But you know, it's definitely something that exists.
So some of your songs are coming through on Spotify and.
No, none of mine are technically, but there's things that sound like my music that do.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and you can tell, like, from that end. I mean, it's funny because I've had a lot of friends who would probably not even believe me until they, like, sat with me at a place where, like, you can tell, like, song by song, you know, that there's, or either that or I feel too interconnected to even tell the difference because of my music, you know. But I feel, I mean, you can just tell. I mean, it's just, it's one of those things. I was hanging out with this, my friend last night, her name's Gates, and she was telling me that she felt like her Rhapsody was telling her to do things. Like it probably was, because that's how fast technology is moving, and the technological revolution is moving really, like, even faster, you know, by the day. So
push technology.
Yeah. So it's force technology is what I use. But I mean, it's good for what it is, because obviously, if you're talented enough to do certain things, and you're obviously talented enough to reach certain rewards, and then you're finding your place in life and in music and in different things. So.
Are there certain radio stations you can imagine your music being on, or
not
around
really.
here, or maybe in other towns?
Actually, probably like the jazz stations or NPR or anything like that. Something like NPR for sure.
That would be great. Yeah.
Yeah, much more than like a pop station. I mean, our music is very underground. Like,
have you sent your music to any of these other radio stations?
No. What I do is like I have shows coming up with Greg Ginn from Black Flag in December, and in February, I'm working with him. Like, I'm loyal to him. And SST is like my family. So I mean, whenever I get to hang out with him, I get to live all of my music dreams. So the fame and all this stuff that comes from music is something that I'm not extremely interested in, but I will push forward to get my music out there, you know. So I mean, the more I feel like the more I live, the more I get to where like my destination is. I'm definitely interested in being a successful musician, but just things like popularity, which I can handle, but like it's like I don't really want to, but I will though, you know. It's just all of these different things that, you know, like are all, I'm sure, a struggle for many different musicians, and a lot of musicians have it bad too. So it's just like, you know, I mean, I was watching some video called Unsound the other day, and like the guys from Jurassic 5 were like, you know, they don't know what they're gonna do in their life, and I'm like, I grew up buying your CDs, you know, and like and now you guys don't even know what to do. It's just like the music industry is just like I feel great for where I am, because it's really hard to get into the music industry right now. Like it's harder than it's probably ever been before.
To get a record contract.
Or
just to get things going on your own.
I think, yeah, it just goes in a natural way. I mean, the more we do stuff together, I feel like if it naturally happens, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But like, the friendship is what's the family element of, like, you know.
Or do you think everything's just headed more toward indie releases, and the big record companies might go away eventually, you think? Or?
Well, I think the big record companies aren't trying to tap into. I mean, well, it's really hard to say because now we're reaching a technological stage. But as I think more people are going to come up with good ideas and like new ideas, and like it won't be kind of like the way the music industry has been. I think a lot more people listen to music for the idea more than they do just the music alone. I think people would rather feel a certain way than, you know, be like, oh wow, this guy is a great guitarist. I mean, but then again, there's different people in that regard too. Like, I mean, that just goes back to the music genres. Like, you know, you never know what's going to come out. I mean, the way things are becoming so personalized in our world, you know, it's like there might be an artist that is in its own category because he can relate to your personality or something like that, you know. So it's really hard to tell, you know. It's really hard to. There's so many different ideas going out, and it does make it kind of confusing for, you know, everyone. But you know, the things that happen all the time will happen forever anyway. So.
Yeah, some things never change.
That is true. Yeah, yeah.
How do you rate the Dallas and Fort Worth music scene compared to, say, Houston's music scene or Compton or LA or something like that?
I definitely favor LA over most places in the world. I mean, to me, it's not even about the city themselves. It's just about the art that people produce. Because, like, I mean, I started working with, like, Mexican Lions and like, you know, heavy Telemega Sounds and, you know, bands like that because of taste. Like, I feel like what I do is I'm in my own musical progression rather than, like, trying to adapt to what goes on around me, you know.
Yeah,
because I'm just doing my
way for sure.
Yeah, I'm just doing my own natural. And I mean, like, my album's very Middle Eastern, but very trip hop, but very orchestral. You know, like, it's just like these ideas are things that I come up with. Like, I don't really hear other artists doing the same things I do. So I'm fortunate to have people that support my music in my life. And so like.
Who are some of the other people on the album that I can barely read the print? It's so small.
Yeah, Tanya Blum, flautist. Owen Story did turntablism. Liberty Till did some of the better vocal tracks in the album. I did vocals. Synths did all the beats, most of the compositions, et cetera, et cetera. Chloe Midlowski, Alexandra Martin. Warren Foster, co-engineer. Matilda Thayer, Rushing Silver is her name. She's a great artist, great, also analog digital person. One of my closer friends, you know. It's like I said, like it's just like a taste-making thing. You know, there's a lot of people, way too many for me to list, that have contributed to what it is that I do and we do.
Well, it's great that you were able to recruit them in to work on your project.
Absolutely, you know, and I mean, it's just a never-ending thing for me as far as like, you know, I think I think the reason why I prefer the LA beat scene is because a lot of artists are like me in the sense of mixing digital and analog together, and I feel like, you know, that's kind of where my heart is in terms of music, and I feel like, you know, I see more pedals and more like effects and stuff out there, and there's a lot more people too. So I mean, like I said, it's all about taste, not city or location, because anyone could end up anywhere, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I appreciate you being here today and sharing some things with us. And,
yeah.
So y'all check out his album out there,
Timpani La Moda.
La Moda.
By Arcane Timpani.
And say your name again, please.
Nasir Mazboudi.
All right. Thanks so much for watching, and we appreciate it a lot. Have a great day.
And they tell me, follow your dreams. And they say, do what you want, and money will come.